Hello friends, welcome back to the third lecture of our 10-minute series where I try to cover every chapter from your paper Advanced Business and Financial Management in 10 minutes or less. So without wasting any time, let's start with today's lecture. In this session, we will talk about the concept of organizing in management. That is, guess how organizations are structured, how authority and responsibility work, and how change and conflict are handled inside an organization. We will keep the focus on the key ideas that are most useful for your exam and for practice. First, let us see the roadmap of today's lecture. We will begin with the meaning, fundamentals, and importance of organizing. Then we will move to the organizing process and its stages. After that, we will discuss the main principles of organizing and the key types of organization structures. Next, we will understand formal and informal organization, organization charts and manuals, and organizational culture. Then we will go into authority and responsibility, key issues in organizational structure, and the basics of organizational change and change management. Finally, we will touch on conflict dynamics and conflict management. Now let's start step by step. Friends, organizing at its core is about arranging authority relationships so that tasks, people, and workplaces are coordinated efficiently. As we learnt in last lecture that planning tells us what is to be done. But organizing tells us how those tasks will actually be carried out, by whom, and in what structure. It involves grouping activities and resources into sections or departments in a logical way so that the organization works as a harmonious whole. Next, please note organizing is closely connected with decision making. Together, these two activities form the backbone of managerial work because they decide how resources are used and how work flows inside the organization. Friends, do you know after the recent CAIIB syllabus revision, the pass percentage has dropped sharply to just 20.77%. And these are not just my figures, these are as per official IBF data. But what's the reason for such a sharp downfall? Well, the main reason is not that bankers are not studying enough. Now, there are primarily two important factors that have led to this massive fall. First is increase of syllabus from 3 papers to 5 papers. Friends, for bankers, CAB was already a bit more challenging than JAB, but with addition of 2 more papers, the difficulty has crossed over the roof. Then second and bigger reason is non-availability of smart preparation resources. Luckily for you, there's now a solution. Let me introduce you to my CIB Masters Pack, which is created specifically for the new CIB syllabus and upgraded exam pattern. For each paper of CIB, you get a summarized notes book covering entire syllabus in my own words, in depth but not bulky. Friends, if you are serious about clearing CIB in your very next attempt, then stop wasting time with scattered resources. Click the link below, grab your CIB Masters Pack and start preparing smart. Now, can you tell why organization is so important? Friends, a good organization provides a clear structure for communication and coordination across departments. It establishes clear relationships and channels of communication, and it unifies people and resources towards common goals. It improves efficiency in administration by bringing related jobs together, reducing duplication, and ensuring clear delegation of authority and tasks. Not only this, it also optimizes resources by assigning suitable roles to each worker and reducing misunderstandings and delays. Friends, organization also supports specialization by encouraging division of labor into specialized roles, which improves both speed and quality of work. It promotes effective communication, creates transparency through clear job descriptions and defined responsibilities, and supports expansion and development by coordinating resources in a methodical way. Now, let us look at the organizing process and its stages. Friends, organizing is a systematic process. It starts with reviewing plans and objectives. So, managers first look at the goals of the organization and the actions needed to meet those goals. Then they determine the specific work activities required. Now, these activities are then grouped into manageable units, often using departmental patterns like functional, geographic, product-wise, or customer-wise groupings. After that, tasks are assigned to people and the necessary authority is delegated so they can perform those tasks. Finally, a clear hierarchy of relationships is designed so that decision making and coordination are smooth. And this is generally shown through organization charts. Next, friends, there are additional components in organizing process which include determining objectives clearly, classifying activities into smaller units based on employees' skills and capabilities, and assigning duties through a detailed job description so that there is clarity and accountability. Next, let's move to the principles of organizing. So, some of the key principles are: first, principle of objectives, which means tasks must be aligned with organizational goals. Next, principle of specialization, where jobs are assigned based on specific skill sets. The next, principle of coordination, which is to maintain unity and harmony among departments. Next, principle of authority and principle of responsibility, which ensure that managers have decision making power and that duties are allocated with clear accountability. Next, we have principle of span of control, which deals with the number of subordinates a manager can effectively supervise. Next is principle of balance, continuity, unity of direction, unity of command, exception, simplicity, efficiency, and the scalar principle, which deals with a clear chain of command. Then this chapter also gives a detailed analysis of core ideas like work specialization, authority, chain of command, delegation, and span of control. Friends, work specialization breaks tasks into distinct jobs for efficiency. Then authority is legitimate power flowing from top to bottom. Then the chain of command ensures a clear line of authority. Delegation transfers responsibility from manager to subordinate, and span of control deals with how many people one manager can handle effectively. Now let us discuss the types of organizations. First is centralized and decentralized organization. Friends, in a centralized organization, all critical decisions are made by a central authority. This gives clarity and efficiency, but the structure can be rigid and may not adapt well to local needs. Also note here employees may feel less involved in decision making. Then in a decentralized organization, decision making power is distributed across different levels or divisions. This allows fast decisions, better expansion, higher morale, and growth of middle and lower managers. However, coordination becomes harder, operations may become inconsistent, and efforts can be duplicated. Then next classification is line and staff organization, which combines line authority with staff specialists. Now it has dual authority channels, functional specialization, and a hierarchical structure. The advantages include professional expertise, relief to line executives, improved coordination, and more research and training. The disadvantages include conflicts between line and staff, lack of clarity, possible inefficiency if advice is poor, high cost, and chances that staff overshadow line executives. The next classification is functional organization, which was developed by Taylor. Now it organizes work by functions like finance or operations under specialist leaders. Subordinates may report to multiple functional specialists, so it does not strictly follow unity of command. Please note it brings specialization, higher productivity and efficiency, but it also creates coordination challenges, authority conflicts, higher cost, and difficulty in implementation at lower levels. Then fourth and last classification is committee organization, which refers to groups of experts formed to solve specific organizational problems. It is in fact democratic and involves participative decision making. Friends committees improve quality of decisions and goal setting, but they may face conflicts, delays, diversion from the topic, lack of secrecy, and limited accountability. Next, let us look at types of organization structures. Now, these are of two types, which are formal and informal organization. Friends, formal organization is consciously designed, goal-oriented, and based on clear role assignment, defined hierarchy, and structured communication networks. Its advantages are organized tasks, achievement of objectives, avoidance of duplication, harmony, a clear chain of command, and a focus on work. Its disadvantages include delays due to scalar chains, ignoring social needs, and excessive focus on tasks. Next, informal organization arises naturally from employee interactions. It fulfills psychological and social needs, uses non-hierarchical communication, and depends on the formal structure. It supports fast communication, social satisfaction, accurate feedback, and can be a strategic tool. But it also spreads rumors, lacks structure, may resist change, and may give more importance to personal interests. Friends, another concept that you need to understand here is that of organization charts, which are diagrammatic tools that show primary functions, interrelations, formal authority channels, and degrees of responsibility. They can be master charts or supplementary charts and can be vertical, horizontal, or circular. Also note another term, that is organization manuals, which are compact books that explain goals, authority, responsibilities, policies, procedures, rules, and regulations. Together, charts and manuals clarify structure, avoid overlaps, resolve conflicts, and help both employees and outsiders, but they can be rigid, incomplete, and psychologically sensitive. Next, we come to organizational culture. Friends, organizational culture, also called corporate culture, refers to the values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that shape the unique work environment. It includes values, assumptions, behaviors, and modes of interaction. This chapter explains four types of culture, which are: first is clan culture, which is like a family with strong community, shared traditions, mentoring leadership, collaboration, and trust. Second, adhocracy culture is based on innovation and entrepreneurial spirit with risk taking, experimentation, freedom, and creativity. Third, market culture is competitive and goal oriented, focusing on market share and profitability with strict and demanding leadership. And finally, fourth, hierarchy culture is based on structure and control, formal rules, procedures, productivity, predictability, and organized coordination. Next, let's discuss authority and responsibility. Friends, authority is the legal right of a superior to issue commands. It flows downward through the chain of command and can be delegated within limits. On the other hand, responsibility is the obligation of subordinates to carry out tasks assigned by superiors. It flows upward and is non transferable. Please note, authority and responsibility are closely linked and both must be balanced to ensure proper accountability. Next, sources of authority include legitimate authority from formal roles and systems, coercive authority based on fear of punishment, rewarding authority based on incentives, expertise authority from specialized knowledge, and referent authority based on admiration and respect. Then, forms of responsibility include operating responsibility, where individuals are accountable for their own actions, and ultimate responsibility, where managers remain finally accountable for task accomplishment through their teams. Now, let's see key issues in organizational structure and organizational change. The friends here, some important structural issues are turnover, productivity, process management, role specification, customer satisfaction, innovation, and teamwork. And problems in any of these areas can affect performance and growth. The next organizational change is a modification of structure, technology, culture, or processes to move from one state to another. Changes may be developmental, transitional, or transformational. Please remember, developmental change improves existing processes. The next changes during transition move the organization to a new operational state, such as mergers, acquisitions, or automation. And finally, transformational change involves fundamental shifts with unknown outcomes, such as entering new markets or new product categories. Friends, change management is about planning, controlling, and helping people adapt to change. It evaluates scope, timing, cost, quality, human resources, communication, risk, and recovery. Next, friends, this chapter also presents several change management models. First is Lewin's change management model, which uses an ice metaphor to show three stages. Here, organizations first unfreeze by analyzing the current state. They then change through leadership and communication, and finally refreeze by stabilizing new practices so operations settle into a normal pattern. Then second is the McKinsey 7S model focuses on seven interconnected elements like strategy, structure, systems, shared values, style, staff, and skills. It shows how these components must align for change, but their interdependence can make the framework complex and vulnerable if any element is weak. Then third model is Kotter's change management principles describe 8 phases of change. Here managers create urgency, build a team, develop a vision, and communicate it. They then empower action, plan visible wins, persist through difficult stages, and finally reinforce new behaviors so they become part of the culture. Next model is nudge theory, which was introduced by Cass R. Sunstein and Richard S. Thaler. It emphasizes encouragement rather than force. It studies how people are influenced and adjusts those influences to achieve positive results. The theory is applied in behavioral science and organizational management to guide choices. Next, we have the Edgar model, which is a framework for managing change. It begins with awareness of the need for change, then desire to support it. Here, knowledge shows how to change. Ability is the capacity to apply new behaviors, and reinforcement keeps the new state in place. Next model is called Bridges Transition Model, developed by William Bridges. It highlights the transition people experience during change. It starts with an ending or letting go of the old way. People then pass through a neutral zone of uncertainty before reaching a new beginning with opportunities. Finally, we have the Kubler-Ross five-stage model developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It explains emotional responses to change. People may move from denial and anger to bargaining and depression. The final stage is acceptance, where the change is acknowledged and people adapt to the new situation. Lastly, let's discuss conflict dynamics and conflict management. Friends, conflict dynamics focus on how conflict develops through stages and changes the environment and interactions. On the other hand, conflict management aims to resolve conflicts while minimizing negative outcomes and maximizing positive outcomes like learning and better performance. It uses negotiation, creative thinking, and context specific strategies. Here, important skills include clear communication, attentive listening, empathy, a positive attitude, patience, problem solving, and correct priority setting. Friends, here conflict resolution strategies include not ignoring conflict, explaining the nature of the issue, organizing meetings between parties, identifying a mutually acceptable solution, and maintaining vigilance and follow up to prevent recurrence. Next, please answer these two questions to clear the concepts. Give me the correct answers in the comments, and my like to your comment shows that your answer is correct. So, friends, with this, I wind up this lecture. You should now have a clear understanding of what organizing means, why organization structure matters, how authority and responsibility are linked, and how organizations handle change and conflict. Lastly, don't miss to get your resources from the links given in description. So thank you, and I will meet you again in another video next week.